I'm the Executive Director of Unity Charity, and Unity Charity, for those of you who are maybe joining us for the first time, maybe came across us because you knew one of the panelists, something like that. We are a national nonprofit organization that uses hip hop art forms to help young people develop resilience and to promote well-being. We were established in 2008 and we work all across the country. We got folks here from Halifax. I think there's some people in the room from Winnipeg. Yeah, we're all over the place. And yeah, super happy to be here. I want to welcome the panelists. I'm going to get to doing a nice detailed intro for all of you in a couple of minutes. I want to welcome the participants in the room today. As I already said, I think we've got folks from across Canada representing a lot of different provinces, and so excited representing a lot of different art forms. I'm super stoked about who we've got here today. I know we've got some beatboxers, we've got some MCs, we've got some poets, we've probably got a few producers, got some DJs. It's kind of true to hip hop, you know, we're here, we can listen and learn from one another, share the space together, elevate together. Don't be shy to use the chat function to build one another up. Shameless self-promotion, throw in your handles, throw in links to your latest tracks or whatever. People listen, follow, you know, all that good stuff. I feel like while we're in the room together, we may as well share and support and get to know our friends from across the country. Just a couple of housekeeping points. So there will be a recording of this panel available, streaming on YouTube with closed captioning for folks with diverse abilities. So you can share that within a couple of days after the panel. Also big ups to Ella, who is moderating, assisting today. She's a Unity Charity host. She's going to be doing a couple of things today. Yes, all the snaps for Ella. We love Ella. She's going to be doing a couple of things for us today. One, if you have any tech issues, you can send a message to all the panelists and Ella will hit you back and help if she can. She's also going to be sharing links to things that the panelists referenced today. So links, terms to look up, things like that. So keep an eye on the chat and you can line up all of your tabs for learning and research once the panel is done. So thanks, Ella, in advance for that. And then for those of you who like to see things in writing, she's also going to be pulling up the questions that we pose to the panelists so you can see those in writing as well for convenience sake. Don't forget to submit your questions. If you have questions for the panelists, submit them through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen instead of in the chat. We're going to do our best to get to them. The time really flies in these panels. I can't even believe it. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we save a couple of minutes to get to your questions. So don't be shy and share those in the function at the bottom. There will be a quick evaluation survey that you're linked to directly after the panel. It'll take you to a site as soon as you close the Zoom link. If you're able to spare 30 seconds to give us some feedback, we super appreciate it. Always trying to learn better how we can serve what you guys are trying to learn. Always trying to do things better and cleaner. So we really appreciate any feedback that you have for us to learn from. I also, of course, want to do a couple of thank yous to our sponsors and partners. First, huge thank you to TD for supporting this panel series, which is a part of Unity's Artist Development and Training Program through the TD Ready commitment. So as a part of TD's goal to help people feel a sense of belonging in their communities, TD supports events, initiatives, and organizations from all across North America that amplify diverse voices. That's what this panel is all about. You're trying to make sure that entry-level and emerging hip-hop artists have a chance to learn and excel and hear from folks in the industry to get their voices and their art heard. That's what Unity is all about. So huge thank you to TD for being such a great supporter and ally to Unity. We so appreciate it. Also, big ups to Not What You Expected for co-presenting this panel with us. Thank you, Tanisha, for repping today from NWYE. So yeah, short for Not What You Expected. It's a label and artist management and development company, recording studio located in Toronto's West End. I had the privilege of visiting the NWYE facilities just before everything went into COVID shutdown. It's an amazing facility. great studio, super professional folks over there. They do really incredible work in terms of, you know, artist development, supporting people with their performances, their music, putting them in touch with the right people to move their careers forward. For anybody in the space today who's an emerging MC, producers, artists, singer-songwriters, definitely don't sleep on Not What You Expected. And you can check them out on Instagram. They're at NWYE.co. Make sure that you check them out, and big thanks again for co-presenting and bumping this panel for us. We super appreciate it. Okay, super important. Do want to do a couple of acknowledgements before we get into presenting the panelists and the main panel content. So first, I'd like to acknowledge and express gratitude to be connecting with all of you today from land that is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Also want to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Going beyond that, though, I also want to invite everybody to join me in taking a little pause to acknowledge the fact that the ability to connect with one another online is a huge privilege that is not equally afforded to households in Canada. There's a huge digital divide that has been seriously exacerbated since the onset of COVID-19, where so much has moved online, so much has moved virtual. There's only 30% of Indigenous households on reserve in Canada that have access to high-speed internet, as compared to 99% of households in urban centers. So in delivering these panels online, in learning about how to excel in the virtual space, we're all collectively contributing to the widening of the gap between artists and creatives who have internet access and those who don't. So just want to take a moment for us to consider what kind of acts that we can take. One thing, we can educate ourselves on the Canadian government's rural infrastructure commitments. We can use our voices and our votes to hold the government accountable to their targets. We can use our influence and energies that we have available to us to support Indigenous artists, communities, and organizations that honor your own models for activism and allyship. And I also specifically just want to share an organization that's called Internet Society. You can find them at internetsociety.org. They're doing really amazing work to ensure that every Canadian has access to the internet. They've got some really dope information on their website about what the situation looks like and work that they're doing to remedy that situation. So highly recommend that you check them out if this is something that you feel passionately about. As well, as an organization that achieves impact through hip-hop art forms, which are products of the Black lived experience, we also want to acknowledge the legacy of the Black community in the founding and propagation of these art forms. Another invitation to action. It's not just enough to acknowledge anymore. I'd like to ask folks to consider how we can collectively lend our energies to ensuring that Black artists and communities benefit from the widespread commercialization of hip hop culture. Let's continue to hold media and industry accountable for the uplifting and respect of hip hop art forms, and educate when we see them referred to with ignorance and stigma. It happens all the time. Let's continue to promote the value and importance of hip hop as a space for communities to protest and resist the systems that cause and perpetuate their oppression. Let's continue to pay homage to the OGs and the Black roots of hip hop. And finally, as we do in community, let's all continue to lift as we climb and pave the way for Black youth to thrive in the hip hop communities that we move through, so that they can find resilience and pride in this culture that is a legacy of their heritage. Important, so much work to be done, and let's get to it. Okay, without further ado, this star-studded cast, I'm so excited. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Britta B, spoken word poet. Britta B is a spoken word poet, public speaker, MC, and artist educator. Her writing, often autobiographical, explores relationships to domestic violence, mental wellness, Blackness, and women's empowerment. She's an alumna of the Toronto Arts Council Leaders Lab, a member of the League of Canadian Poets. As an artist educator, she's also mentored thousands of youth through programs initiated by organizations like Unity Charity, Jayu, Poetry and Voice, Prologue to the Performing Arts, and the Power Plant. Currently, Britta is a creative writing MFA candidate at the University of Guelph. Britta B, yes. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, yes. Next, so excited to introduce Tanisha Clarke, artist manager, artist, singer-songwriter, also label CEO at Not What You Expected. So many hats this woman wears. Born and raised in Toronto, Tanisha is a Canadian singer-songwriter whose music can be heard on various commercial radio stations across Canada, such as G98.7, Flow 93.5, and CBC Radio, as well as on Apple Music and Spotify playlists. In 2017, Tanisha founded an entertainment company and record label called Not What You Expected, dedicated to spotlighting and elevating Canadian international talent. So true, Tanisha proves to be not what you expected. Love that. Miss Katelan Donnelly here. Katelan is an A&R associate at Sony Music Canada, where she's worked since 2016, skilled in digital media integration, artist development, A&R, and digital marketing. Katelan has experience with various facets of the entertainment industry and a demonstrated history of result-driven creative work. Love those results. Katelan, so happy to have you here. I'm really happy we could find a way to do something together. Yes, yes. So much lady power here tonight. I'm really excited. Phil, not a lady, still a powerhouse. Co-founder of Beatbox Canada. Phil Dixon is a beatbox enthusiast who's been active in the beatbox community for the past 10 years. Yes, yes. Through organizing events, traveling to World Beatbox Championships, and filming and editing beatbox battles. Coming from a background in television and film, Philip has worked with the Toronto hip-hop community for over a decade, capturing and editing content for King of the Dot, Unity Charity, and Manifesto. I'm really honored how many bios we show up in. It's so dope. Currently, Phil works as a multimedia specialist for TD Bank, big ups to TD again, while helping direct content and events for Beatbox Canada. Phil, so happy to have you here repping for the beatbox community. Can't wait to hear from you. Also, Skratch Bastid, DJ producer. Skratch, Paul Murphy, better known by his stage name Skratch Bastid, is a world-renowned DJ and producer. He's a 3-time winner of the coveted Scribble Jam DJ battle. Every summer, he celebrates his culture in various cities around the world through an event series called Bastid's Barbecue, which has featured headline performances from the likes of DJ Jazzy Jeff, DJ Premier, Pete Rock, Biz Markie, Just Blaze, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, among others. In 2008, he became the first ever Canadian DJ to be nominated for the Juno Award for Producer of the Year. Yeah, crazy, right? Woo, Skratch. So happy to have you here, man. Really excited to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for repping the DJs today. And certainly last but not least, coming to us from the East Coast, my homeland as well, Maritimes lady here, Melissa MacMaster, 902 Hip Hop founder and CEO. She has gained valuable business management experience from her previous roles working in Atlantic Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem and startup community for over 7 years as a business development officer and co-founding the Global Youth Innovation Network in Benin, West Africa. Transferring her high caliber skill set to the music industry and successfully launching 902 Hip Hop, an artist management and music licensing and sync company, 902 Hip Hop's expertise has created incredible talent and has solidified Halifax as a major player in the Canadian hip hop music industry. Big facts. So happy to have you here, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping we have some Halifax folks in the room today as well. Unity Charity recently started working year-round in the East Coast. And yeah, so really happy to have some folks from out there repping on the panel today. Okay, without further ado, again, we can now get into the main panel content section. So I'm the kind of person I always like to start, when I start conversations, like to start with the bigger picture. I feel like once you got a sense of the bigger picture, we can get into more into the minutia and the details. So we're gonna start by talking a little bit about how has the game changed. I don't think that anybody would disagree with the statement that COVID has completely changed the game for the arts, creative, and cultural industries in Canada. Things have been totally flipped on their heads. People need different skills to showcase their talents, and people are making money in different ways. I know that there is, you know, a contingent of folks who are maybe waiting for things to go back to normal. But really, I think a lot of other folks are resigning themselves to the fact that there's going to be a new normal, and that the shift to online has actually created a lot of innovative opportunities, new ways of connecting and sharing that are probably not going to disappear, because COVID or not, they're actually pretty awesome. You know, so we can choose to wait it out and hope things go back to the way they are, or we can choose to adapt. And we're going to go for the adapt here, because nobody needs a panel about how to wait things out. So my first question, and I'm going to put this to all of the panelists. For those of you who just joined us, you're going to be able to see the questions in the chat function there as well, for those of you who that's easier for than listening. So my question, what's one new type of virtual opportunity or trend in your art form or industry that you believe is here to stay? And why is it important for artists to take note? So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put this to Britta first. Britta, do you mind? I know. Britta, speak to the poets, tell us.
Yeah, so as you see, there's a lot of things happening online with like live streaming concerts, galas, festivals, also, you know, even more personally, workshops, classes, showcases and features and whatnot. And looking both as an artist educator and as a poet, I think something that's definitely here to stay is the opportunity to have more mentorship online and more workshops online. I think that we've been able to see how well that this works. And also, like, a lot of people are developing their skills one-on-one with people online. And I think that we see that it's not impossible to do anymore. Something that I'm noticing that I'm hoping will continue, I can't say that I believe it will or not, I have to wait and see, is that there's more space dedicated to Black and Indigenous artists. We're seeing this a lot now with, you know, requests for grant funding. We're seeing this a lot now, especially in the poetry community, where events are dedicated for only Black and Indigenous voices. And there is promises in the air. There are promises in the air, but I have to wait and see whether or not that gets followed through on. And actually, just a plug here, there is a survey going on right now for Black artists to fill out via the Toronto Council, and I'll pop it in the chat here while everyone else is talking.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Britta. Great contribution. I love that. More space for different voices, again, what the panel is about, as well. Yeah, like you said, mentorship and training is something that's worked so well. Like, to even, like, I feel I can be more open and be more myself because I'm in my space. And I think that that's a really interesting point, especially in terms of it being not only a great way to pass knowledge, but also a great way as a major, you know, a money earner and a revenue stream for consultation, right? Love that. Can I shoot it down to Melissa? Melissa, one new type of virtual opportunity or trend that you think is here to stay?
I think what we're seeing a lot now with kind of the live performance kind of kiboshed for 2020 is that we're seeing a lot more A&Rs, a lot more music influencers like Sway in the Morning, Charlie Sloth, Fire in the Booth. We're seeing all of them kind of go live, and that's allowing a lot of emerging artists the opportunity to showcase their talents, to tap in, to kind of rap, perform, sing, for major A&Rs at major labels in the US and the UK. And I think that's providing a lot of new opportunities for emerging artists. And it's also allowing them to kind of engage with new fans outside of their province, outside of their country. So I think we're going to see that staying for this year, especially until we see kind of live performance return.
For sure. That's a great point. I kind of touch on that a little later. One of the panelists in last week's panel referred to COVID as the great equalizer for artists, where it's like, yeah, we'll get to that later, but it's interesting to hear you echoing that as well. And I think so encouraging and positive for entry-level and emerging artists to say, you know, it has been hard and it has been challenging, but there are some ways that this change is actually pushing the cards in your favor, which is, you know, really encouraging. Okay, Phil, what do you think? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. I think one of the biggest things, especially in the beatbox community, it's really event-based. There's every country now has national competitions to kind of showcase where everyone's at, and uses that as a stepping stone to reach bigger events, kind of like Olympic style. And one of the best things about our scene is that so many people were already online beatboxing that now it's been given an even bigger spotlight, and people have adapted very quickly to it and made it so that it is a concert, it is a show. Like one of the most recent ones that Swiss Beatbox did was a month after this happened. They were already planned to do it, and they adapted so fast. They had 10,000 people watching the stream. The quality was great. It dragged on a little long, but it was, everyone who's involved learned so much from that, and it's not going away. Like those events are gonna, I think, still be online even when we get back to seeing each other in person. The ability to connect and battle and share stuff online with people across the world is almost even better than just doing a local event where you have, you know, a couple heads from around the block. So I think that's here to stay, and they're just gonna get better and better with technology and cameras and mics, and, you know, soon we'll be virtual, you know, there'll be holograms in your living room.
For sure. No, I love that too. I think that's such an interesting point. One thing, you know, at Unity that we see, like, you know, from funders and conversations with people is that whether it's a pandemic or whether it's carbon emissions, people traveling across the world for an event, you know, people are going to stop giving out money for that someday soon. You know, and so to really embrace how incredible it is that the geographic boundaries no longer constrain us, I think that's a really good point. And to see that, again, to see that as a positive in increasing our reach around the world. Nice one. Okay, can I flip it to Katelan?
Yeah. Melissa, you totally hit the nail on the head in my opinion. I think it is the great equalizer, and it's given so much opportunity for people to get in front of people they haven't before, whether that's people in the industry or fans. And it's brought so much opportunity to make some authentic digital connections. And that's not going away. That's going to increase, and audiences want and need for authentic digital connection to happen in their living rooms and on their phones whenever they want it, wherever they want it. That's not changing after COVID. It's just going to grow. So the things that are popping up that people are using, like texting apps to connect, and really thinking about how you connected with your audience pre-COVID and how you can get in front of them and continue that now, it's not going away. So things are popping up that allow you to continue that digital connection in a way that's it's authentic, and it's authentic to you as an artist and what your output is. So
for sure. I love that, Kayla. I think that's a great sort of aim, authentic digital connection. Before all of our wonderful participants joined on, we were talking about a really cool online event that we had all seen, and I watched it from my living room, and it touched my heart, and like the creative direction was so good that I felt like all of the artists were speaking to me and my scenario that we were all collectively experiencing, and it felt very authentic. It felt authentic for me enough to, like, you know, donate a chunk of money. I was like, thank you so much. This was amazing. So I think that's really cool. And also for folks in the room, we're going to get into a little more detail about ways that different art forms can engage and grow their audiences in this space later in the panel. So stick around for that. I'm going to flip it down to Skratch. Skratch, take it away. What do you think? New type of virtual opportunity or trend in your art form that's here to stay? Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
There we go. How's that? I think that some things. First of all, everyone's had everyone's answers resounded with me for sure. I feel like the DJ and beatboxing communities in a similar sense kind of share some similarities in that they're kind of performative. There was already a really large online DJ community that existed in the form of short Instagram videos, YouTube videos, and even schools and places to learn. So I feel that, but also I understand that DJing also has a pretty high barrier sometimes with the gear and so now what I'm seeing and also everything you said to set this off, Rebecca, you even got me thinking about connectivity. I live a very connected life with online, and so sometimes I have a lot of gear, and sometimes I forget that there is a point where people don't even know how to get in there. But another thing that I've always led through my 22 years of DJing is just participation is the most important thing you can do as a member of any kind of community. And you've got to use what's at your resources. Use the resources that are at your fingertips. And I think that this level of connectivity and these platforms that are coming up is giving people a chance, no matter where they're from, to step in and see what's going on in what used to maybe be these places that were spaces that were built out of locale or out of proximity. So that's a really, really cool thing that I'm seeing, and because I see these almost new clumps of people. It used to kind of seem like I knew most of the DJs in the community in some sense, but now you're starting to see these people say, I heard a guy say, oh, I'm really into DJs, but I have a 9 to 5 and I don't really, but now DJs are online everywhere and I can hang and there's so much good music and I'm discovering so much. So I feel like what was once a bit more insular has now, because people's habits have changed and the access has changed, we're seeing more people joining the communities, and that's really exciting.
I love that. I think that's a really cool point, like the idea of participation. I think, you know, like the same idea of like showing up, and I'll plug it again to folks who are in the space today in the chat. There are artists from so many art forms. There are artists from across the country. Like, plug one another, follow one another, connect one another. You looking for a producer? You looking for a beatboxer? Like,
yeah, you got it. You can showcase whatever it is and whatever level, and the good thing about it is there's tons of people at no matter whatever level you're at. There's a lot of people, and they will seek you out because they understand your level and say they won't be afraid to ask you some of the lower level questions or whatever. You know what I mean? A little, hey, like, how do you do this thing that I'm supposed to know how to do? You know, like that kind of thing. And I love that exists. And one thing that you said too is like new spaces. So there's kind of less barriers to some of the spaces instead of getting in or knowing someone and this kind of thing. If you show up, you listen, you participate, you show respect, and you know, contribute to the conversation, there's a lot of opportunity to get involved.
100%. Love that, Skratch. Okay, last but not least, Tanisha. Tanisha, who can respond to this question in so many ways from so many different perspectives. Tanisha, what's one new type of virtual opportunity or trends that you think is here to stay?
I, again, agree with everybody's points that they made so far. I think for me, something that has been useful in all aspects of everything I do, whether it's artistry or management, to be honest, has just been like this virtual connection. So we're able to take a lot more meetings. The productivity is a lot higher because you don't have to, like, you know, leave your house and travel however many hours. Like, I'm from Scarborough personally, anybody that knows the GTA, and my business is in the west end of Toronto and Etobicoke, so that travel is like a massive thing, you know what I mean? And doing that to downtown or to wherever, it allows you to just focus a lot more on what it is that the meeting is or what it is that the project is. You can kind of like hone in on it. You can, like you were mentioning, Rebecca, you're in your space, you know what I mean? So you can kind of set your day up according to that and deal with situations or people or just anything really, like in that environment. So I think that's something that's been super helpful. It also helps you get a lot more done, like in terms of accountability with others, to be honest. Like, we're all home, so you can't really get all that run around that you would previously, like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, or like, you know, you have to travel to certain cities or whatever to connect with people. Now that that's been kind of, you know, finished, we can definitely get to like real results now at this point and keep up productivity Also, like you're mentioning, a lot of people are learning a lot of new skills at this time. So it's like, I feel like that mental time, to be honest, is the time that we all really need to zone in on our crafts. So I feel like Zoom is a really important thing that's happened. Even just like changes with Instagram, like now we can call one another and like do that thing. So it's a lot more easy access to be able to communicate with the people that you need. And then our schedules obviously make it a lot easier. So I think that that's something that's been super important.
And I love that perspective, Tanisha. You know, I think that one thing, having worked with, you know, entry-level and emerging artists for my whole professional career, that idea of structure and accountability and like using your time well and the business side of it is, yeah, it's a struggle. And so like encouraging artists to think about like, this is such a great time to learn about, I have to be home. How do I make my home time as productive as I possibly can? How can I, with the resources that I have and the space that I have and the access that I have available to me at the worst of times, how do I still keep moving forward? So I love that. I think that's like a great thing for people to take like from this circumstance and think about, you know, we can always be this, we can always grow this much and accomplish this much for sure.
Yeah, I think it definitely tells us as well, like what we actually need and what we don't, you know, what things that you think you need.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
One more thing, sorry, that I'd like to add in Skratch, you can probably talk on this as well, is we're seeing like the use of other platforms like Twitch, OnlyFans for certain artists, as well as like YouTube Live, like platforms that artists wouldn't have used often as they're using right now. And I would say Twitch would probably be the most popular kind of platform right now that a lot of artists have been kind of moving towards, especially for like producers. I know you use it a lot, Skratch. And so I think that's not going to go away either. We're seeing a lot of conferences, a lot of info sessions, just a lot of things that are being done now via Twitch or YouTube Live.
Can we just throw those in the chat, make sure in case people are not familiar with those platforms? So Twitch, OnlyFans, and then just checking out YouTube Live as new platforms that people are using. Quick funny story, Twitch is the gaming site, right? So I went on to Twitch to register to see what it was all about. And you know when you first register for something and it's like, tell us 3 things you like that will inform your preferences. I didn't even recognize 3 things. I was like, what is this world? No idea. Anyway.
Well, just quickly on that, I was shocked at how developed the dialogue and the platform is. Yeah. But you know, it's been a gaming platform for 10 years. So as an artist, I was just blown away by I had to stay. You got to just watch it for like a few days, a few hours, and really just try to understand the culture of emotes, bits, cheering, subs, because you got to understand how to play the game. But it is a really interesting platform, and also a platform where people are used to supporting financially as well. So if you can understand the give and take of it, you might be able to find a space and community there for yourself.
100%. Love that.
They're also doing really cool things like Fortnite's during concerts, like Travis Scott concert. So then if you're a gamer, you can participate. You can actually go to a concert virtually. I thought that was really cool. I was with you, Rebecca. I was like, what? Wow.
Yeah. For sure. Amazing. Okay, so in a sense of like some really great trends and things, you know, for those folks who are like, God, let it go back to normal, some recommendations from our panelists in terms of like, you know, these are things that you can look into, things that maybe if you want to start resigning yourself to, the past has not disappeared, but a significant shift has happened. And how can we allow ourselves to see opportunity in that shift instead of sort of digging in our heels and waiting for things to revert? So my next question that I'm going to put to 4 of the panelists today, I want to move from the bigger picture into some of the challenges that artists and professionals are having in making this shift to online. And I want to talk specifically about psychological and technical shifts and how folks can stay current and confident. As I was saying earlier, you know, the move to the online requires a whole new skill set and a whole new mindset. Things that a venue would have provided to an artist, artists are now having to figure out for themselves, whether it's filming, sound, lighting, whatever. Things that an audience would have provided for an artist, artists are now having to find in themselves, you know? So not only are artists checking their own sound, doing their own promo, they're also like, you know, hyping themselves up before they get on camera. I was thinking that there's probably there'd be like a great video of clips of artists like hyping themselves up and then getting to like an iPhone. What's up? Yeah, I just imagine, you know, such a challenge, right? Like I practiced this in the mirror before I got online. But so to my question, I'm gonna put this to Skratch, Britta, Tanisha, and Phil. And the question is, what are the most significant technical or psychological challenges that you've had to overcome in the move to the online space in your art form or industry? And do you have any advice to entry-level or emerging artists who are facing similar challenges? So most significant technical or psychological barrier or challenge. And let me put that to, let's give it to Tanisha first.
Okay. So I would say technical was a thing. When you're an artist like myself, like I'm a songwriter, I'm a manager, I do a lot of things like vocal production, a lot of things that I don't actually engineer. I don't actually do a lot of the technical side of things. So I'm a studio owner as well. So being in the studio without like your team that is like the engineer and the sound, and you're now like looking at all this equipment and like, okay, if I just like fiddle with this, then maybe this will turn on. So a lot of it was really learning a lot of different skill sets that really they're directly related to your path, but that aren't your skill sets, you know what I mean? So I learned a lot of like technical things like soundproofing and like how to work. It's a lot of YouTube videos, to be honest. Like the internet is your best friend. I watched a lot of YouTube videos about like production, about sound. That's like one example. So to be honest, you pick up a lot of different like skills according to what you need to know, but there is a lot of information available to you. So if you're, you know, spending an hour, I used to do this like before bed, like spend an hour watching some sort of training video in some sort of thing. Whether it's like even simple things, like to be honest, for a while I was off of YouTube. So I went back and like YouTube has like YouTube Live and all these things now. And I was like, what site is this? The last time I was on YouTube, it was very straightforward, you know? So just like even little things like learning what the updates are of these new sites and what their new like mission or goal is that they're trying to affect, and also learning what sites are for you. I spent a lot of time figuring out what social media platforms I didn't need, what kind, like where I had my largest engagement. So things like that, it gives you a chance to zoom out. That was really what I used the time for, to really zoom out and look at like what's super important on the list, what isn't. Psychologically, I would say as an artist, the hardest part about it all is like at the top of the year we were doing a lot of performing and doing a lot of live shows, and having that in-person engagement is an energy that is not replaced virtually. There's a lot of amazing things about having virtual connections. You know, you can connect all over the world without having to take flights and all these things. But that energy that an artist gets from being on stage and just like other people knowing your lyrics and like singing along, and you meet so many new people. Also that adrenaline rush comes from being outside of your environment. So like in your room in front of your camera, it's going to be one thing, it's a different type of awkward, but like when you go out into a venue, into another space, and you're getting ready to perform, it really sets in a different energy that I feel like a lot of creatives, I don't know, Britta, you could probably speak on this, but like that's something that I'm definitely missing. In the beginning of COVID, it was just like, man, are we gonna be able to go back outside? Like, but I was very like, no, I don't want to do any like virtual anything. Like, I'm cool. Like, I'll just wait until we can go back outside. But now, to be honest, like even those connections with other people that you meet around the world, and them being so excited about what you're working on in this time, it gives you that momentum that like there is a world and you do have a platform, no matter if it's like in person or virtually or whatever. So it's just really about building the best version of yourself to present however you present it. And then like we're working out some cool things in order to be able to perform. Like we said, there's like drive-ins going on, you know, so I feel like at some point we'll get to a place where we can perform in some capacity. But right now, honestly, that's been the hardest part, is the lack of, you know, person-to-person interaction. But yeah.
One thing that one of the panelists from last week said was the idea of figuring out first, like, what are your strengths? and then what medium is going to best showcase your strengths.
Yeah.
Is it something live? Is it something live to recording that's then promoted later? So I love that idea that you said, Tanisha, of zooming out and thinking about, okay, there's a whole world of things that I can pick that are going to be good for me technically and psychologically, but how do I really hone in on something that's going to best showcase me and best showcase my talent? So I really like, that's a really good point. Can I flip it over to Britta? The most significant technical or psychological challenge you've had to overcome in the move to online?
Yeah, like as to say, for me, like I'm someone who's not online regularly anyway, and the in-person atmosphere is a vibe that I feed off of. It's how I elevate or enhance my performance by being able to read a room and being able to look at faces and like even move closer toward people and really just gauge energy in person. That's such a big, fantastic, push as to why I'm a performer. And so moving online, a couple things happened. I had to like break this barrier I have with myself with like doing IG live or doing videos online. Like the great thing about it was that a lot of my peers, we were all learning at the same time. You'll see a lot of authority learning at the same time on how to move. And by authority, I just mean people who have powerful positions. Being able on what it means to move things now online, because people still need entertainment, people still need education, and people still need connection. And so it was super awkward, my first like showcase online for myself. I don't know if anyone else could feel it or read it, but what I learned from it, and this is why we have to push ourselves, is because there's always a lesson to be learned in terms of our development, is that me looking at a camera or my little Mac camera, whatever it is, I treat that as the audience. And I don't have to get like hopped up on the fact that I can't like reach out and feel people physically in the room. I know that people could be listening to it and not give me an expression, but still feel something. And that quietness or that look of maybe the interpretation of expression is okay. It's okay to just be yourself. And I learned a lot of that by watching other performers. To be honest, watching Skratch on the Urgent Love and Music Together concert, like he was just having fun, like just being free. And that's what you got to do. Like when you're on stage as a performer or as a speaker or as a teacher, whatever it is, you have a natural personality. So keep your vibe and also vibrate higher by just recognizing like you've already done the work to get to this point where this challenge or this, little hill that we got to get over together and moving things online is something that you're ready for.
I love that. And the idea, like you said, of like treating the camera as your audience, it's like, I know a lot of people always say that, like, again, entry-level artists, like the hardest thing you're going to do is play to an empty room or sing to an empty room. And it's like, congratulations, everybody's been doing that for 6 months now. So now when you get back out and you're trying to like, learn how you fill a space, people are gonna be so drawn to your energy because even if you are in an empty room, you're gonna be giving it as much love as you give your camera during quarantine. So I think that's a really beautiful perspective on that. This like, self-grown confidence, like don't even need an audience to be like so confident in what I present and bringing my authentic self, to a performance. I love that. Let me flip it over to Phil. Can I get Phil to speak on that?
Yeah, well, I guess it was the technical and psychological challenges.
Yes.
I think initially for me, it was like accepting what was happening and what was going on. Because as an organizer for Beatbox Canada, we were in the midst of organizing our event that should have happened last month. And
Right.
it's, we do 2 big ones a year, and this one was going to be the biggest and best. We had a new venue, super psyched. We had just received probably 70 submissions from around the world.
Wow.
A lot of new faces, a lot of young and up and comers. It was going to be all ages for the first time. So it was a big, like, we waited till the last minute to know we couldn't do it, but we held on. So that was a big part of like, kind of adapting and figuring it out. And so now we're in that space again where our next step is creating the Canadian Champs, which we do every year in November or December. And right around this time is when we start our push. And so we're reevaluating that right now and how we're going to do it. We still have hope that, you know, by that time something may be, you know, we may be able to do something in person, but we obviously got to take it with a grain of salt and err on the side of caution for what we do. So that puts us over to the technical aspect where that's
Can I ask you one more question on the technical aspect for any of the artists in the room who are not organizers, but more just sort of practice the art form? I'm sure you must have watched lots of different, you know, battles and stuff like that. Are there any, you know, setups or things that you saw that especially that highlighted the art form really well in a home setup? I can only imagine that trying to beatbox into like an iPhone mic is just like not quite the same.
Yeah, I would say there's definitely recommendations. I'll put a link in the chat for humanbeatbox.com has great references and articles on how to build your best home setup.
Awesome.
So yeah, there's a lot, because there's totally tons of different mics you can choose from. And that's one other thing. Probably going forward, we're never sharing mics again.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a hard no.
Yeah. People had already started bringing their own mics for their own personal reasons, and now it's that's amplified. And yeah, I don't think we're going back, which is I think fine. So now if Sennheiser would sponsor, you know, we need 16 mics come our next event. So
okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Going back to a psychological shift.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was leading into like kind of what we're pushing for now is adapting to the technical side of how we could put on the best event come, you know, our Canadian Champs, because we built Beatbox Canada as a platform for all these beatboxers who never really had a place to showcase their talent. So we want our platform to be one of those places that means something, that, you know, that draws a big audience, that draws the right attention. Hopefully, you know, that's where they get noticed and they can help take their next step. So we want to, you know, I guess make the most of what we can and still put on the best show that we can.
Awesome. Love that. Thanks, Bill. Okay, Skratch. Technical and psychological challenges you've had to overcome, and then advice to artists who are facing similar challenges.
Well, I'm going to try to simplify it because I could probably spend the next 40 minutes about both of them. Yeah, it's been tough. I'll admit, I lived a really good life pre-COVID. I've traveled to over 55 countries, done my thing for 22 years. I did an international event, barbecues in 10 cities across the North America. We had all that planned for this year, and I empathize with Phil on the event side. And I thrive off events. I love people. I'm a people person, and I love bringing people together. And I'd already sort of been doing an online thing, so the hardest thing for me was letting go of like the physical space stuff, and it hit me pretty hard. And to be honest, it continues to. It goes in waves. But what Britta said was very true about just sort of like finding your voice and how you can be your best self to what you're doing. And I'll mirror what she said. It was my first time seeing Britta on the same. We ended up on the same bill. So if that alone is a testament to the participation and defining your voice. We're right here. We're homies. We're hanging on Zoom now, you know. And she lives in my neighborhood. I'll probably see her at the grocery store. Do you know what I mean? Like with a mask on, you know. So like it's like there's like I'm learning ways to spend my time here because I'd always put it into something that's not really there. And the motto for me has been maintain, and I'm just trying to maintain what I've built up and not let it fall by the wayside or keep it to something. But also what I'm realizing is I'm building up skills that are going to help elevate that as it returns. So I speak from someone that's been doing it for a while. So I try to, in reading these questions, thinking of someone entering, and that's again why I push the participation thing, because there's all kinds of people that are now moving to online. So if you're ready to spend the time and share your time and support, doesn't even have to be financially, but just with time, your skills, share skills. There's all kinds of communities that are going to be really thirsty for participation at like other people at all levels. So I think that understanding where you are in that this new space, that was a big psychological thing for me, because a lot of my identity existed in the physical space outside. And so adjusting to that has been that's psychological, and then kind of trickles out of that to the technical side. Asking some friends, I have some friends in video, like, hey, like, I need to learn how to do this, I need to hook this up, I need to borrow a camera, I need to do these kind of things, kind of using your resources, understanding, and that's another thing, understanding what you can bring and what you might be able to trade with someone else for, because there's not a lot of money coming in right now. So it's hard to sort of justify the spends, and sometimes you can say, hey, I've got time, I can give it to this, learn this. Tanisha said a lot of like YouTube and this kind of thing, and like learning, and like it's everything is on YouTube. And all these simple things that like I should have known before, but I just never clicked search on YouTube. I watch a 30-second video and I'm like, oh, that's so easy. I'm so silly, you know? So there's all kinds of those, and it's a daily learning right now. Kind of overwhelming. You're lucky you can't see what's on the other side of this camera, because it is just complete project mess. Like, it's just like I got 9 things on the go. So yeah.
I like this kind of, again, this stream, I don't know, from, you know, for the last number of months, sitting with folks from similar communities, different communities, hearing, again, this idea of the great equalizer, like folks who are far along in their career, who are professionals in the industry, just to those who are coming along, it's like, it is equalizing in the sense of everybody's having to learn these new skills. In some ways, everybody's starting from scratch in one way or another. Mm-hmm. And also that idea, like, online, the digital connection, like same, you know, connections to folks on here. We were involved with the Urgent panel as well, and through being, or the Urgent event, and through being involved with that, we got connected with some videographers and some video producers who we're working with now to do other stuff. It's like, people are out there, there are new connections to be made, and so it's really great to hear that that everybody's kind of having a similar experience. I find that comforting.
Yeah, I'm looking for people of all, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm just saying, if you got a skill, raise your hand, do a thing, and show somebody you can do something. Hey, you can make emotes for Twitch, cool. Let's do that. You know, like,
sure.
Looking for all kinds of help right now.
Don't hit me up for anything Twitch related. It's not my strong suit. Okay, moving along. I want to ask a question now to folks about audience growth and engagement. So coming back again to this idea that folks were talking about COVID as the great equalizer, folks no longer needing this access that can be really hard to get, particularly for artists in hip hop art forms, access to stages and spaces to be seen and to be heard. And this idea that creativity is king, and like everybody's having to do more with less. And someone dropped a real gem that was, it's not about resources, it's about resourcefulness, which we made him repeat. And then we typed it in the chat. It's not about resources, it's about resourcefulness. And I feel like that's so true for this time. So I'm going to put this question to Katelan, Melissa, Phil, and Britta. So now that there's this idea that the playing field kind of has a new set of rules where entry-level and emerging artists have better odds of being seen and heard, what's one specific way that artists can use online opportunities for audience growth and engagement? Let me put that to, can I put to Katelan first?
Yeah, I'm gonna say 3 things wrapped up in one specific thing.
I love it.
I think the most important thing in the way to grow an audience and to build engagement is to, 1, know who your audience is, know them well. 2, listen to them, listen to the feedback you're getting. And it's going to be digital feedback now, it's going to be online, it's going to be data. So listen to what that data and information is telling you. And then 3, don't stop. So let's back that up. Knowing your audience, finding out who they are, where they consume the art you make, and how they do that. How did they do that pre-COVID? How did they do that now? And if you're still building an audience, figuring out who you want that audience to be. Who are you speaking to? Who is your art for?
And so the idea of like learning who your audience is, you're talking about like whatever platforms you're using, getting accustomed to looking at the analytics, like where are people tuning in from? How long are they being engaged? Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah. So knowing who they are and then figuring out where they find you. So do they engage with your work on YouTube? Are they on Instagram? Do they use Twitter as a way to communicate with you? Do they, in real life, did they stay after your shows and talk for hours? Or did they watch you make art? Do they purchase your art? How do they consume what you're doing, and how can you transition that digitally? And then once you find that, and once you say, okay, my audience is on Instagram, for example, and they connect with me in pre-COVID in live shows, and we connected in a real space and we had a conversation, how can I host something on Instagram that emulates that pre-COVID situation? And then once you figure that out, don't stop. Keep doing it and do it over and over again. And that's how you grow an audience, whether it starts with 2 people watching or 100,000 people watching. The more you do something, the more people will see it and the more people will expect it and engage with it.
I love that idea. Oh, we got a pupper in the corner over there, Britta. I love that. Wow. You know how to distract me. No, I love that point, that idea, Katelan, of like, as much as the space is different, the ability to create authentic connection is just as available in the digital space as it was face to face.
Yeah.
And like you said, particularly for emerging and entry-level artists, it's like, I don't think there's anything weird. Like if I sat in and watched an artist's Instagram live and they hit me up after with like an authentic, hey, thanks so much for listening in. I really appreciate you being there. I'm curious, how did you find out about me? I'd be like, oh, wow, this is a real, this is a personalized response. And like in the same way I would talk to somebody in a room I was in to be like, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate you. Tell me how you found me.
Yeah.
So learn from that. I love that. That's really great.
To that point, one more quick thing to add: the frequency and the sort of determination to keep doing what you're doing helps. So if I'm catching something on Instagram and it's an Instagram live or on YouTube and it's just a quick thing I'm catching and someone saying like, I'm sharing my poetry or I'm making my art here, I'm gonna do it every Tuesday. I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I don't have a second right now, but I know that person is doing that next Tuesday, hopefully every Tuesday to come, and they're going to keep doing that. And I know that. And that's where I'm finding like my favorite, jams that I would go to in real life happen on this day. You can build that in the digital space too.
I think that's a really great point. And again, just framing it up for folks who are in this space, from the words of the Sony A&R rep, consistency, like maybe doing something, figuring out what works and doing it repeatedly instead of a once-off, thinking about, okay, how can I put together something that I can maintain, that, that gets some energy of its own. That's really great advice, Katelan. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to flip it over to Britta. Britta, can I flip it to you?
All right. Yeah.
One way that artists can best use online opportunities for audience growth and engagement.
Yeah, so create what you need. Myself, I'm a writer and I perform, I coach, I mentor, I even do public speaking, and I host events. One of the things that I felt that I needed was better editing skills, not only for myself, but for when I'm teaching my students or walking into communities and spaces where people are going to ask me for advice. And I wanted to up my editing game. So something, thanks to, the lockdown and the pandemic, but also luckily because I'm just in the position to have a little bit of money that I can put into this. I started an online poetry contest, and it has given me monthly submissions where I'm able to look at endless poems. I put a line limit on the poems. I say, you can submit me anything you want as long as you wrote it like 45 days ago, at least 45 days ago. So you're not sending me that stuff that's supposed to be the golden piece. I don't want you to send it to me. I want you to feel more confident sending stuff to me, so you go and feel confident sending it to bigger prizes and bigger lit journals. Because the other thing that I recognize is that not a lot of BIPOC writers are submitting their work. So I wanted to build a platform, or just build the opportunity and space for more people to feel comfortable getting their stuff looked at. And so with these submissions, I've been able to do something unlike any other contest or literary journal that I've ever submitted to, or grant that I've ever submitted to. I'm able to provide feedback. I read the poetry, I give suggestions, I tell people what stood out to me, and maybe something to work on in the future. And also I choose a poem plus a couple of runner-ups each month. And I give them a little bit of money, maybe for groceries, or some money to submit, because sometimes it costs to submit to lit journals, or it costs money to submit to contests. So that little bit of money can go towards that. Plus they get a platform via my website and social media for their stuff to get looked at. And then their handles are shared, and we're collaborating together. People are looking at my websites, more people across the world. I've had intercontinental, international submissions, and now we're creating this like collaboration where we're able to connect, but also like have an opportunity to do something with the stuff we're creating that we don't think usually is worth anything. And I think that was something for me, that sometimes I'm writing or I'm creating things that I don't think is that great, and then it goes nowhere. I don't even come back and look at it. And I think by giving this space to other people, I'm getting something out of it by getting more opportunities to edit, and other people hopefully are getting something out of it because they're submitting for the first time a poem that they wrote.
I think that's awesome, and I love the confidence that you're expressing, and in the sense of like seeing a need, seeing a gap that needs to be filled for you personally, but also in the space that you move in the communities and art forms that you move in, and saying, I'm as good a person as anyone to fill this need. Let me create what I need, instead of waiting for somebody else to come along and present it to me. That idea of like, of agency, and like, I have the power, and everybody's at home, everybody's using these platforms. Let me create something that serves this gap. I think that's really awesome, Britta. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I'm gonna flip it down to Melissa. Melissa, one way that artists can best use online opportunities for growth and engagement.
So I'm going to use a real example with one of my artists, Quake Matthews. I think he did a really great job kind of using social media and just taking advantage, I guess, of the situation that was presented to us once COVID hit. There was a lot of noise at the very beginning. You know, everyone was kind of overwhelmed with what was going on, and the only thing that we had really access to was like our phones and online. So we were seeing, you know, everybody jumping on Instagram Live, like 24/7, you know, live performances, just trying to, you know, get music out there. And there was really no, I would say, really no strategy at first. It was just like, this is new, what do we do? Quake is a different type of artist in the sense that he's not releasing or writing, say, every single day. Nor did he, you know, feel comfortable doing live performances every weekend, type of thing. So one thing that we wanted to do was figure out a way how he could engage with his fans that not necessarily had to be music-wise, him performance, him showing, you know, videos of him in the studio or whatnot. And so we kind of came up with 3 ideas that were things that he genuinely liked doing and thought would be, you know, fun to show a different side of him. So we created a tap-in series where Quake interviewed, you know, hip hop artists across the board. So some of them was like Freeway, Cardinal, Chad, Jerry D. So he reached out to a lot of artists just to do like interviews, and that kind of helped him grow a different fan base, because people really like tuning in and seeing those interviews take place. Another thing that he did on Saturdays was he did karaoke with Quake. He gave away like a $200 prize. So, you know, every Saturday or maybe bi-weekly at 10 p.m., you know, people from all over Canada and the US would tune in, and they would, and it wasn't necessarily rapping. And that's one thing he was very clear about, was that he didn't want, you know, somebody just coming in to kind of rap for him. He wanted someone to come in and do a cover song of something. You know, so if you're a rapper, well, you know, don't rap your own lyrics, you're gonna do a cover. So that became like very, I would say, enjoyable. A lot of people started tuning in, and he's, again, like, people were just spreading the word that, you know, there's this karaoke, you know, night going on, you can win some cash, tune in. And the other thing that we did was really more so, you know, about Quake's mental health and making sure that he was, we call it the basement, getting out of the basement. And he went live and he asked his fans to join in on a 2-week walk-in challenge with him. Like rain or shine, 10 a.m., you tap in for a half an hour, and, you know, you would join kind of Quake on his walk throughout his neighborhood. You know, he would tell stories about where he grew up in and whatnot. And he actually has kept that walk-in group, I want to say alive, because it was such kind of a personal engagement that there's been so many spin-offs to, you know, the people that were part of karaoke with Quake, or the people that were a part with the walking challenge or the tap-in. So he was able to kind of grow 3 different audiences, and bring them onto his platform. And he did that without, I would say, like, without rapping or without like pushing music on them. So I think that's one thing artists can, you know, really think of, is that it's not necessarily about, you know, going live on my Instagram or behind the scenes at the studio. It's like, okay, you know, your fan wants to connect with you, who you are. So who are you outside of music? And what are some of those things that you can bring your fans along that journey to really get to know who you are and really feel a part of your journey? And I think that's what this opportunity has really allowed, is for that kind of creativity, or for those artists to really push themselves outside the box, and allow their fans to really connect with them on a true level. I always say this too, like, you know, we look at artists that we all work with, you know, their Instagram followers could be, you know, 4K, 15K onward. It's like, but who are those fans? And it's like, how do you really have a relationship with those fans? Like, could you ask your 15,000 fans to spend $100 on you? You know, if you dropped a merch today, would they buy something? So I think, especially with emerging artists, like, and we spoke about this at the very beginning, like, it's not about your 4 fans. It's not about your 2,000 fans, or your like, it's about knowing your 2 fans and knowing your 10 fans. And it's like, if you can organically build your fan base from 2 to 10 to 20 to 200, and you can come to me, you can come to Katelan, you can come to Tanisha and say, I have 2,000 fans, like, legit, like, I can name my fans. This is where they're from. They bought this merch from me. Like, that's worth so much value than like me pulling up your Instagram and you saying that you have 200,000 fans and here are my analytics. So I think that's you know, this is the time and the moment to really build that strong fan base. And again, like I said at the very beginning, you know, we have access like we've never had it before to major A&Rs, Canada, the US, and the UK. Entertainment personalities, like I said, like Sway in the Morning, Charlie Sloth. You wouldn't have been able to have that type of access if this didn't happen. Quake was able to go on kind of Sway in the Morning's bedroom bars, Charlie Sloth, Bootleg Kev, and rap. We've locked in interviews with all of them. So when we go and do our album rollout, when we're able to, you know, travel, You know, to us, like that's 3 major media outlets in the UK, California, and in New York that like we didn't need to, you know, hire a PR person to do that.
Yeah, and I really like your point, Melissa, about the idea of like, and I think this again, bringing it always to entry level and emerging artists. One of the super dope things about the artists that I've had the privilege of working with who often come up through community is that they do know, like everybody that they follow, the engagement is insane. And it's like, they're all about supporting one another. And so that audience engagement piece is there. And so some of those ideas that you and Quake came up with are super cool. And I think that it's really neat how it balances something that's legitimately engaging for the audience, like the artists stepping out of themselves and saying, okay, what's something that's actually going to be fun and interesting and interactive and different for people, but then also, you know, sharing a piece of myself. So I think those are some really creative and interesting ways. I definitely hear you on that period of time when everyone was like, I'm on Instagram Live making a bowl of cereal. And it's like, okay, I don't think that we put enough thought into this one before going live, but those are really great points, Melissa. Thank you.
One more thing right quick. For any artist that is, you know, using Instagram Live or Facebook to connect with A&Rs or to connect with entertainment personalities to showcase whatever that is, like you have to be ready, like have your music ready, like make sure like, you know, like you test playing that out, because we've watched pretty much all of them at the very beginning before we kind of stepped in the ring, so to speak. Not being prepared or not having your music ready, or if it doesn't play back, like that's a missed opportunity that you're not going to get again. So just, you know, be ready when you want to kind of, you know, get in the ring and showcase with those A&Rs.
For sure. Ella, thank you. Giving me a time check here. I do want to flip this question quickly to Phil. And then we've got 2 more questions to get through. So I'm going to ask everybody to try and like stick to the yes. I can't believe how time flies. It's crazy. I'm going to flip it to Phil. Go ahead. One way that folks can be seen and heard using their online opportunities for growth and engagement. Oh, you're on mute there, Phil.
I didn't mute myself, but okay. So speaking to the beatbox community specifically, I think one of the things I find a lot of really talented beatboxers fail to do is kind of build their brand, so that they kind of live on the stage, but then when you go to find them, you don't know where to find them. So I suggest that to all the up and coming beatboxers to take this time to really build up your website. Be confident in your Instagram or your Twitch or whatever it is. Choose a platform and take it slowly, you know, to find your audience and to know who they are. A lot of beatboxers, you know, they're super talented, but they're beatboxers, you know, and then now they're being asked to be PR and then to be marketing and to, you know, you're your own manager. So you do got to take things a little slowly, do your research, see what other people are doing. There's examples on every platform for successful beatboxers. Like Twitch, for example, the current Grand Beatbox champion, Codfish, huge. That's how he blew up. He had more followers on there than, you know, probably, you know, top artists combined. So it's finding your niche, sticking to it, and then reaching out to us. I'll put it out there. Beatboxcanada.com. Send us a message. I've connected a lot of beatboxers to opportunities that exist because people come to us in general to be like, hey, I need someone for a commercial or someone for this interview or someone to do a workshop. So make yourself known, get in contact, and we will, you know, do what we can to find a spot or give you an opportunity.
Amazing. That's very generous. Awesome, Phil. Thank you. And yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, again, the idea of like, when you rely so heavily in person on the audience growth and engagement, yeah, if you can't back that up with something online, that's like a really worthwhile thing. Just even creating a space where people can know you and can engage with you is so critical. So I think that's really savvy advice. Thank you, Phil. So keeping right along here with some of these really practical things that people can apply as they're trying to navigate this space. As we talked about earlier, I know a lot of folks kind of wanting to get back to normal all of these, you know, reports and stuff that I'm keeping an eye on, they're suggesting that music and sports are going to be like two of the last industries to go back to normal. There's just, I'm sure that people saw the, some people may have seen Ontario, at least their live music phase 3, and everyone's like, well, how's this going to work? It's going to suck. You know, so hey, let me find my question here. So one question that I wanted to ask folks, so for those artists who are trying to get paid through their art, who have lost revenue streams because how things have changed, I want to help folks get an understanding of, if there's money, where is it in this kind of post-COVID space? So again, keeping an eye on the time here, I'm gonna put it to Katelan, Tanisha, Melissa, and Skratch. Skratch, I'm going to start with you. What's one new or underutilized revenue earning opportunity that artists should be investing in or learning about? Take it away.
Twitch is the one for me, or Patreon subscription services. No matter what your size, like if you have 2 people subscribing to you, that's $20. That gives you a goal. It gives you a thing that you're going to do and deliver, and it makes you accountable like that. And that's a good outlet for you. I didn't believe in it till this stuff hit, you know, because my online stuff always drove people to buy tickets to shows. Right. So when you take away the shows, it's sort of like, well, what's the energy exchange? What do people want to see? I'm still creating stuff, but I'm creating more stuff, and I'm creating more personal stuff. Kind of like what Britta said about like getting comfortable with what you want to share with people. Some stuff that I would have kept hidden a little bit behind the curtain or backstage, now I'm letting it into certain people that want to see it. And I had to learn that, you know, that includes things that are imperfect, or includes things that are in progress, and choosing who can see what at what point, and understanding that there is a place for most of your stuff that you feel like sharing, even if it's earlier demo stuff. And that can be just with my peers, or it can be with fans. And so I think Twitch is a great one. And I see that community as a rapidly growing community, and again, like I said, like one that supports financially and community-wise. So I would just, to keep it quick, I'd say that.
Okay, awesome. So we had Twitch and then Patreon. I think that Ella's going to pull that one up as well. So thank you, Skratch. Let me flip it to Tanisha. Tanisha, one new or underutilized revenue earning opportunity that artists should be investing in or learning about.
I'm gonna say the grant system. A lot of time in genres like R&B and hip hop, a lot of times we don't apply for these things, or we don't know how to apply, or we don't feel like we have all the information that we need in order to successfully put through an application. There are a lot of tons and tons of resources of grants available, especially during this time. People of color, doesn't matter, like pretty much if you're an artist in an art form, pretty much there are resources available. So something that I have been doing is doing grants, sitting down and educating artists how to start their own business, how to register their businesses. It doesn't matter even if you operate underneath your artist name, you don't have to have like a whole production to register your name as a business. So that's what we focus on in terms of development. Registrations of businesses, explaining what you have to pay for to get articles of incorporation, or however, if it's a sole proprietor or all that stuff, we kind of explain. And because I realize working with artists, a lot of times we just don't know the information, like, you know what I mean? Or it might have been mentioned to you in passing at like a panel at this one time, but it's not like sat down and thoroughly explained, and a lot of times that's what we need. And there's a lot more access for specific genres in Canada specifically to be reached, whereas like R&B and hip hop and like the beatboxing even, and like graffiti and like the things that a lot of our community artists focus on, those resources are disconnected in the sense of like how do you apply for these things. So what we do and all we expect is make sure that artists understand business and understand what is available to them, and we break down these resources. I believe I emailed some to Unity, so Ella's probably like doing her Ella thing. Yeah, she's on it.
And I think it's a really great point, Tanisha. For folks who are in the room, Canada actually has a really incredible system for funding the arts. And as much as it is hard to come by, as compared to other countries, it's huge. And so wherever you're tuning in from in Canada, it's almost certain that your city, your province, and the country as a whole have an arts council that will fund your art. I think playing to a point that Britta made earlier, it's also a time when people are going to start noticing how funding is allocated to different genres.
Yes.
I encourage everybody to look at the annual reports of the TAC, of Factor. Like, you know, see how that is allocated across genre and, you know, get mad. I'm going to say go ahead and get mad.
Also, I just wanted to add one thing, but we also, to add to Phil's point, well, to everybody's point, really, I believe, we create our own spaces. So if you feel there's a deficit somewhere and something that you want to do, throw your own show virtually, you know what I'm saying, right now. Or, you know, there's a lot of like patios and things like that are open, like open space, you know what I'm saying. I believe it was like Daniel Caesar did something really cool. He grew up performing at this like one park. So the way that he engaged with his fans later in his career was he went back to that park and performed. So like it's not finished, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we just have to be smart about how we're using our resources and really put the pressure down. Like if you want some answers, get the answers. Like it's available. So
for sure. I'm just gonna give I'm gonna put it to two other people, but I know Skratch has a hard stop at 8:30, so in advance I'm gonna say thank you so much for coming.
I actually I don't anymore.
Oh great, okay, never mind.
I'm hanging out for a bit. Yeah. I got some daddy duties eventually. We can party all night here, but yeah, okay. I'm here. Go.
Okay, I'm gonna flip it to Melissa. One new or underutilized revenue earning opportunity that artists should be investing in or learning about.
So for me, it's easy. It's sync. It's music licensing. That's one of the things that we do kind of all day, every day, is licensing specifically hip hop rap for TV, film, video games, and commercials.
For folks in the room who don't know, can you explain what the term music licensing means and what sync means?
Yeah, so sync is short for synchronization. Music licensing is just kind of the process of taking your song and licensing it so it can be like played on a TV show, a film, in the background of a video game, commercial, or ad. And you know, a lot of people may feel that, okay, I have to be at a certain level. My song has to be charting, anything like that to get your song kind of on TV, film, or a video game, but that's not the case. I kind of learned about music licensing and sync at very early on in my management company, especially working with emerging artists and looking at the pie and being like, okay, this isn't sustainable. If I'm a manager, how am I going to get paid? And really learning about music licensing. So a lot of the emerging artists that I work with, Quake especially, and KO, one of their huge revenue chunks is through licensing their music. And especially right now, I mean, there's still, you know, we're still watching TV shows, video games are still being made, commercials are still going out. So the licensing piece is really kind of taking care of the absent revenue from live performance.
That's amazing. And I would echo that. I asked you to explain the terms because, again, a lot of the artists that I've worked with are not even familiar with that is a revenue stream. So I think that was a great one to bring up, Melissa. Thank you. Katelan, can I put it to you? One new or underutilized revenue earning opportunity?
I'm gonna try not to repeat the great answers everybody else gave. I think they're really valid, and that's true. The platforms Skratch mentioned and Tanisha, the grant system, absolutely, and researching spaces that are gonna support you in what you're doing, especially if you have a firm idea of like, I wanna do this thing. I wonder if there's something out there that can support this specifically. I'll also throw out customization. And what I mean by that is I've seen a lot of artists take stock recently of their skill set and how they can package that into a product that people are willing to pay a premium for. I'll give an example of Toronto DJ George Toms, who is offering custom mixtapes for $100. It's an hour of music. You can pick the songs, it's a present, it's a gym mix, it's a great idea. And he obviously took inventory of his skill set and what he likes doing, and thought, how can I package this to pay some bills, because I can't play in clubs, I can't tour. So whether you're an MC or a graffiti artist or a poet, sitting back and thinking about how you can use what you did pre-COVID, or what's harder to do now, or even what you could have done then but didn't because there are other opportunities for revenue. How can you get creative in doing something a little bit different and getting people to buy into it?
Amazing. That's an awesome idea. I would totally pay for $100 personally made mixtape from Skratch. Sending my genre preferences after the after the panel is through. Okay, I realize we're at 8:30, but we do have one more question. If folks, like I said, if folks have to go, I totally respect and appreciate that. If you have a couple more minutes to stick around, I'm going to go ahead and ask. So as an organization, we really concentrate on well-being of youth, of artists, of communities. And I really wanted our final question to hone in on that. Historically, especially over the last couple of months, we've seen so much social, economic, political turmoil in the world, ongoing racial injustices towards the Black community in Canada and abroad, conflict between the government and the Indigenous peoples of Canada, 400% increase in domestic violence during COVID, like 2020, take your pick. It's been, it's been quite a year. So I want to ask a question to the panelists, in part to inspire the folks who are with us, in part to remind artists of what's possible through creation, and just to remind them of their power as storytellers in a time when people so need to feel together and to be uplifted and to be heard. So my question to the panelists, I want to ask everyone to share an instance in 2020 when you were deeply moved by a piece of art or an arts-based demonstration of allyship or activism, something that really reminded you of the power of art, the power of hip hop to move people and to bring them together. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it to Tanisha first. This question was in part inspired by her feedback on the questions we compiled, so I'd like to put it to Tanisha first.
Matt, it has been a hard, crazy time. I would say that overall, I started to speak up more. Like I said, in the beginning of COVID, I was kind of at a place of like, I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not a super digital person, so I'm not gonna like get on live and pretend to be an expert in anything. I'm not. But to be honest, there was a tremendous amount of like questions just from people, just like, how are you coping? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And like, you're feeling all these things so deeply, but it's just like, you don't have direct answers, like in terms of like how to communicate these things. So for a while, I spent like COVID just very quiet and just kind of, like I said, zooming out and seeing perspective. What I really appreciated, to be honest, is like, I'm a studio owner, like mentioned, and I do a lot of like mentorship and artist development with a lot of artists in the city, and I've seen a lot of the like just community overall amongst our artists checking in on on each other, just really a lot of like holding each other accountable in terms of like not just like, yeah, I'm gonna see you tomorrow, I'm gonna see you at the next event, or talk to you whenever I talk to you. But now it's just a lot more of like, are you good? Real conversations. When you ask the person how are they, you actually wait for the response, and you have real in-depth conversations. So I've been moved, to be honest, overall, just by like, even with how we're moving with what we expected. We have a new like procedure, obviously, with like masks, and like now you can come to sessions with one or two people. It's not like the posse thing that artists love to do, Yeah. So now it's just like, in those conversations, I feel we're able to connect with each other a lot closer, to be honest, and have a better understanding of what it is that we are building together. And it's not just to like, yeah, that's such and such, and that's such and such, and you keep it moving. So for me, I've been moved by overall just the human like interaction. I feel like people take that a lot more seriously now. As well as I'm a Black woman that takes up space in an executive role, also coming from being an artist. So a lot of the time the perspective is different for people, you know what I mean, in different spaces. So now it's just like I've been moved by the embracing, like now we're at a time where anything you want to be, you can be. Anything that, you know, I mean, you reach out for is attainable. It's a lot more positive and encouraging, I feel. So now I've been able to feel more confident in the steps that I am taking and know that I'm headed down the right path just by like interacting with other people and seeing everybody chasing their dreams and like holding themselves more accountable. So that's all I've been trying to do is like keep it 100 with everybody at all times and with myself, like having more time to check in with people and with yourself. So
that idea of like, you know, of the connection of the arts community as being a radical activism, and like recognizing that art actually does bring us together, and what that's brought out from us in this time.
yeah, and I feel like companies are going to do their thing on their side, but us as artists have actually gotten closer with one another and with our craft to be able to make our own moves and like kind of, you know, address each other. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you, Tanisha. Okay, I'm gonna flip it to Phil. Phil, one piece of art or arts-based demonstration of activism or allyship that has moved you this year.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. I think one of the first things that happened goes back to my first answer, was watching everyone kind of really come together and adapt with the online events, and just our community, especially when everything gets shut down. There's thousands upon thousands of dollars into these things, and then, you know, you just get told, hey, you can't do it. And it's like how quickly everyone comes together. It's like, okay, I could do this, I could do this, I got you over here. And to see everyone come together and do that was like, the show didn't stop, you know. So it was kind of, it's very, very moving. And another plug coming up, this summer was supposed to be the World Beatbox Champs over in Berlin, and those aren't happening. But the online beatbox battle championships are, for the first time ever. So a global community came together to basically, you know, now host what would have been the world champs. And I'll put the link in there, but it's, that type of stuff is super inspiring and reminds me of just how strong our community is, because beatboxing is a global community. It's one universal language. So I know I'm speaking from a specific genre or, you know, element, but that's just a world that I live in right now, and just very proud to be a part of it. And watching, and it's a lot of the young guys who are doing it too. You know, it's they got the free time. They weren't doing online classes. They were, you know, figuring out how to do everything else. So it's kudos to the next gen and very promising for the future. So
awesome, thank you, Phil. Britta, can I put it to you? One piece of art or arts-based activism that moved you this year?
Yeah, I have a lot, so I'm just gonna drop it in the chat.
Okay.
I'm gonna shout out for sure Desiree, Des McKenzie, and Kiosha Love. They're both Unity artists, and also they both created their own poems that have been promoted on CBC Arts Poetic License just in the last couple of weeks in response to Black Life. And so I'm gonna drop those two in the link, and I'm also gonna shout out Dion Brand for her piece in the Toronto Star on the calculus, the living and dying, and the fact that we're not, there's no, like the normal going that people wanna go back to is racist and oppressive and whatnot. So I encourage you to read that. And then finally, I want to shout out the Black Lives Matter for being allies and leaders this past, I mean, always, but also specifically with the pink paint on the monuments. And I'm going to throw these all in the chat, and I'm sharing links to them as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Britta. Okay, can I put it to Katelan?
Yeah, like Britta, I could go on and on about what inspired me and the specific pieces in 2020. I think generally speaking, there was such an overwhelming move from artists and creators just saying like, I'm gonna fill the voids I see and I'm gonna create what I need. And Britta, to what you spoke on earlier, you know, seeing a need that you needed filled, and you needed that for yourself, and you needed that for the community you're working in, and filling it. And those instances are incredibly inspiring to me, and it's an incredible privilege to do the job that I get to do, an incredible one. And to see artists, I'll name a bunch, I'll drop them in the chat, but to see artists pull through this and pull their whole selves out of their soul and continue to make the art. I'll name a few specifically, but everyone that's making art during this time and digging deep and doing it despite and because of so many things, it's incredibly beautiful, and it's incredibly moving. And it's just, this whole period has really just brought me to my knees, and the arts community, whatever that output is for you, is really showing up, and it's showing up for each other, and it's showing up for themselves. And to speak on it from an industry perspective, it's a privilege to see and to amplify when I have the opportunity. It's I'll drop a few specifics, but
yeah, that was
to say that generally.
Beautiful. Thank you, Katelan. All right. Gems coming up in the chat, folks. I mean, you guys, your browsers better look like mine with like 30 tabs at all times. Okay, let me flip it to Melissa. Melissa, one piece of art or demonstration of activism that has moved you, arts-based demonstration of activism.
So for me, it's industry based. Just recently, we've seen the launch of Advance, which is Canada's Black Music Business Collective. So that's, huge for the Canadian industry as a whole, and just amplifying, Black industry voices. So I would, highly recommend I'm checking that out. Activism movement, and what they're going to be able to do moving forward.
Amazing. That's a great, I had not heard of that. I'm going to check that out for sure. Thank you, Melissa. And Skratch?
Melissa, can you post a link to that? That'd be awesome. Advance. First I've heard of it too.
Yeah.
Some behind on my industry. Real quick, from artists, it was more of an artist making a political stance and using his voice. I really like what Killer Mike said to Atlanta protesters and the way he delivered and used his platform. He's always been a politically active artist, but to see him, it's kind of an underground artist, but also they use a platform like that to show that artists of all types are actually, a lot of them are really politically motivated and politically educated, or just active. They're activists by nature, and I believe that there is an activist nature in art naturally. It's artists are always finding ways to interpret what's going on around them, and like Katelan said, so much going on around us right now. So there's lots to take from. It is a hard time to make art, I believe, for a lot of people. It doesn't just flow out of you, because there's a lot of factors going on right now. So I have a lot of respect for anyone that is putting things out there. I enjoyed Little Baby's The Bigger Picture. It was not what I was expecting from him, but it showed me that an artist, that artists can use their platform. Now is a great time to just break down stigmas, or just present what you're going through, and that really resonated with me. I struggled to find my own way to do something, and so I made a little routine with Fabulous record, Fabulous Breathe, and he shared that, and that really got out there, and that was it's a hard time to do something. So for me, if I can say to other people, just spend time and find your voice, but we can't be quiet right now. We have to find ways to, no matter what our voice is, just find a way to contribute, because it can be hard to say something, but silence is not the thing. So
for sure. Amazing. Well, that brings us to the end of our panels, and just because of the time constraints, what I'm going to do for the two folks who did ask questions is I'm going to get them answered for you offline. I know exactly who to put them to, and so to Nick and to Emergence Music Distribution, we'll post those answers for you. We'll make sure they get out. Maybe when we send out the recording link in Eventbrite, we'll put the answers to the questions in there so you can see them. I want to thank the panelists for being open, for putting so much thought into your questions, So appreciate it. And I know that the attendees were learned and were inspired by what you had to say. I want to thank the supporters again. I want to thank TD Ready Commitment. Thank you so much for making the panels possible and for supporting Unity's Artist Training and Development Program. It's growing and we so appreciate your support. Huge thank you to Not What You Expected. Black-owned business, do not sleep on them. Check them out, nwye.co on Insta. Follow, like, share. We got 2 more of these panels coming up next Thursday, same time, same place. We're gonna have a panel for our dancers, our breakers, our street dancers. Please come through for that. Yes, we'll be starting to promote that tomorrow. We have another dope panel lined up. And then week 4, we got Graph Life. So a session similar to this for our graph writers, muralists, and visual artists. Share if you enjoyed this today. Please share with other artists. Of course, don't forget to follow unitycharity.com. Unity. Thanks, Unity. And then, yeah, as soon as you log off, you'll hit up that evaluation survey. If you have 30 seconds, please do fill it in. We so appreciate it. And that's it from us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Fun.
Thank you.
This is awesome,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks for setting it up.
Great job, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Well done.
Got it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.